Yes, good evening. Welcome. It's the second take. The first take didn't go so well. Of Red Corner Boxing's Fighter Series, Ep.18 of Charles Sonny Liston. But before we start, this program sponsored by EasyStorage.com. For all your local and nationwide needs, go to them. I trust you'll get a good deal. But listen, this is all about Charles Sonny Liston. And before I start, I just want to say this is one of the most misunderstood boxers in the world. At that time, he was considered a monster, not only for his physical, outlandish ways he would deal with the boxers in the ring, but outside of the ring for his connections. And we'll get into that right now. But this is Charles Sonny Liston with Mr. Neutral. Born in 1953 on the 8th of May, according to Charles Liston, in Arkansas, to parents Toby Liston and Helen Baskin, who were a sharecropping family. Now, sharecropping is not to be confused with tenant farming. It was where they share crops with the landlord. They weren't as rich as tenant farmers. And they farmed the land of Morridge Plantation near Johnson Township, Arkansas, with his 12 siblings. Sonny was the second youngest. There is no official record of Liston's birth, as the Arkansas state didn't make birth certificates until 1965. The family was found in the 1940 census, where Sonny was listed as 10. Although Sonny believed his date of birth was the 8th of May 1932 and used it for official purposes, but by the time he won his first title, his aged appearance were talking points as to his real age. And disputed family statements have Sonny as much as 5 years older than Sonny declared. Now, Sonny's mother moved to St. Louis to remember other members of Sonny's family and leaving 13-year-old Sonny with his abusive father. Terrible. Who beat him unmercifully, leaving lifelong scars. He joined his mother a year later, and he was going to school. He tried. But soon he left after taunting about his illiteracy. Liston, inevitably, with a lack of education and job, turned to crime and led a gang, ultimately the St. Louis police labelled the Yellow Shirt Gang. Incredible stuff. Liston and his fellow bandits commit a string of muggings and armed robberies with his yellow shirt on every occasion. Once caught and sentenced to 5 years at the Missouri State Penitentiary, Liston started his time in June the 1st, 1950, without complaint. But it was a meeting with athletic director of the prison, the Reverend Aloy Stevens, who encouraged Liston to try boxing. His aptitude and good behavior, plus an endorsement from Stevens, aided Liston to gain early parole. Stevens organized a sparring session with a pro heavyweight Thurman Wilson to showcase Liston's potential. And after 2 rounds, Wilson had enough. And he was proclaiming, "Get me out of this ring, he's going to kill me." After his release from prison in 1952, Liston had probably one of the shortest amateur careers ever that spanned less than a year, more like 8 months. Liston captured the Chicago Golden Glove Tournament of Champions, March 6, 1953, with a victory over 1952 champion, heavyweight champion, Olympic champion Ed Sanders on points. And in the New York Golden Gloves Tournament of Champions, winner of that, Julius Griffin, to capture the Intercity Golden Gloves on March 26, representing Chicago. Liston was knocked down in the first round, only to come back strongly in the next two, which had Griffin hanging on for dear life at the end. Liston competed in 1953 at the USA National Championships in Boston Gardens, only to lose to 17-year-old Jimmy McCarter, who he later employed as a sparring partner. June the 23rd, 1953, and a team of 10 Golden Glove champions gathered to represent the United States versus Western Europe in a tournament in St. Louis. Liston knocked out Hermann Schreibauer of West Germany in the first round. Schreibauer won bronze at the Euro Championships the previous month. It was taken then that head coach of the St. Louis Golden Gloves team stated that Liston was the strongest fighter he'd ever seen. September 1953, Liston signed a professional contract, proclaiming, "Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do." The only backers willing to put the money up for him were close to the underworld, and figures Liston even supplementing his income, working for racketeers as an enforcer. It was these connections that were advantageous early in his career, but used against him enormously later. Liston made his professional debut on the 2nd of September 1953 with a knockout of Don Smith in the first round, and fought a further 4 times in St. Louis. His 6th bout, he faced 18 1-2 Johnny Summerlin on national television, winning on points over the 8 rounds. He did the same in the rematch, once again in Summerlin's hometown of Detroit. In his 8th fight, Liston lost an 8-round split decision to journeyman Marty Marshall, and with his awkward style breaking Liston's jaw whilst Liston was laughing. But gritty Liston saw out the 8 rounds. In 1955, he defeated Marshall, dropping him 4 times, en route to a 6-round knockout. The trilogy concluded March the 6th, 1956. Liston won a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. However, Liston's known associations, his criminal record, and notoriety as an enforcer for a racketeer led to police stopping him on sight. He would avoid the main streets. However, near his home on May the 5th, 1956, a policeman would confront Liston and his friend about a cab that was parked nearby. This confrontation would lead to Liston's 2nd stint in jail by assaulting the police officer and taking his gun. Liston resisted arrest even after police batons were repeatedly broken over his skull, which led to the public perceiving him as some nightmarish monster who was impervious to physical punishment. He was paroled, serving 6 months of a 9-month sentence, but was not banned from boxing during 1957. But he didn't box. He was repeatedly harassed and detained many times overnight by St. Louis police, and he made the decision to move to Philadelphia with his new wife, Geraldine. January 1958, and Liston resumed his pro career, winning 8 fights that year in one alone, 6 by knockout. Training in Eddie Yarwood's stable with partner Bernie Glickman. Heavyweight champ Virgil Adkins he beat, but both would be subpoenaed to testify in a grand jury trial of mafia soldier Frankie Carbo. I'll show that picture there, please, champs. Liston shifted to a new manager, Joe Pep. Baroni was a frontman for Carbo, and Frank Blinky Palermo And in 1959 was the year Liston came into the eyes of the boxing world. After knocking out contender Mike DeJohn in 6 rounds, he faced Cleveland Williams. Ring Magazine rated one of the finest boxers never to win a title, some boxer Cleveland, who was billed as the hardest hitting heavyweight in the world, showing power, skills, and durability. He stopped Williams in the 3rd round. A victory of Liston's finest performances. 2 more victories followed to round the year off. 1960. Liston won 5 fights, including a rematch with Williams, who lasted 2 rounds. Roy Harris, who went 13 rounds with Floyd Patterson, was destroyed in 1 round by Liston. Any contender, another contender in Zora Foley, was stopped in 3 rounds. And now it was considered that Lister was a champion in waiting for greatness. Liston's streak of 9 straight knockout victories ended when he won a unanimous decision 12-round verdict over Eddie Murkin on September the 7th, 1960. A rare victory where Liston was shown support from the audience. Before the bout, Muhammad Ali advised Murkin to make Liston lose his temper. Those antics backfired on Murkin. Liston became number 1 contender, but champ Floyd Patterson refused to give Sonny the shot, citing Liston's criminal links, paying credence as Liston was arrested 2 more times in that year for disorderly conduct, the other for impersonating a police officer. And that led to Sonny's suspension by Pennsylvania Athletic Commission on July the 14th, 1961, and it was honoured in all states. Patterson's concerns were supported by civil rights leaders, citing Liston's unsavoury character would set a bad example for the youth. Civil rights movements were feared the movements would be damaged should Liston be victorious against Patterson, and even US President John F. Kennedy, met Patterson in January 1962, and even suggesting Patterson avoid Liston as Justice Department concerns over Liston's ties to organised crime. Other notable names who spoke against Liston was Jack Dempsey, and Liston questioned his morality as he failed to serve in World War I. All this frustrated Liston, and he applied the pressure on the media that he was drawing a line, or they were drawing a line, against his own race. Equally frustrated, Patterson maintained he wanted the Liston fight, but was blocked by his trainer Costemato, who he later fired. Patterson made the fight happen for the world to see on September the 25th, 1962 in Chicago. Liston opened up favourite. Many had Patterson to win. A poll of 102 reporters, of which 64 picked Patterson. High-profile sports publications all lauded Floyd Patterson, his speed and tools and variations, and even former champs in Braddock, Walcott, Ezra Charles, Marciano, Ingemar Johansson. And it was only Muhammad Ali who was 20 years old at the time, Cassius Clay, that picked Liston by knockout within the first 5 rounds. The fight itself lived up to all the pre-fight predictions of media and champs alike. Liston, with a 25-pound weight advantage, knocked out Patterson in 2 rounds. In the 2 minutes and 6 seconds to be exact, with a cracking left hook. It was the third fastest knockout in a world title fight, and the first a defending champion had been knocked out in the first round. His backers had not accounted for the sheer strength, sapping clinches and blows in Liston's strategy. And when Patterson played to Liston, the inevitable knockout presented itself. After defeating Patterson and claiming the world title, Liston was hoping to be greeted by crowds and friends and fans upon his arrival at Philadelphia Airport, only to be met by a handful of reporters and staff. Sonny was demoralized as he realized he'd been snubbed. Philadelphia wanted nothing to do with him. By now, Sonny had abandoned any hope of being accepted as a champion. Gone from his character was joy. The realization of the situation, Sonny then decided to play the stereotypes that reporters bestowed upon him, leaving behind any efforts to look friendly or affectionate towards the public. During an era when white journalists still described the black athletes in stereotypes, Liston was often the target of racial slurs like gorilla and jungle beast. In print, Liston's surly and hostile attitude towards journalists would say he brought it upon himself. Patterson enacted the rematch clauses signed in Fight 1 as he aimed to redeem himself. And so, on July 22nd of 1963 in Las Vegas, the pair met for the second time. Both fighters were receiving $1.4 million each. Patterson was 4-1 outsider going into the fight, and after 3 knockdowns in round 1, after 2 minutes and 10 seconds, just 4 seconds more than fight 1, Patterson was stopped. Patterson, the only man in history to hold the heavyweight title twice, but Liston was booed by the crowd following the brutal demolishment. The public is not with me, and I know it, he said, but they'll have to swing along until somebody comes to beat me, he famously said afterwards. Liston made his second defense February 25th, 1964, Miami Beach, Florida, against Muhammad Ali, heavy favorite. And in a pre-fight poll of 43 of 46 sport writers picked Liston by knockout. It just goes to show you how much sports writers of the day knew about matchups. Sports writers predicted Liston by knockouts, such as his fearsome left hook and sheer strength and jab. Ali would proclaim, "If you want to lose your money, bet on Sonny." Such was the poet Muhammad Ali was. Liston was supremely confident, however, enjoying his monster moniker, and entertained and even trained minimally. And with an injured left shoulder, it was reported. The fight started with Liston looking to end the fight quickly, to land hard punches on Ali, to knock him out. Ali proved hard to hit, however. His movement from Liston's jabs was beautiful. Ali showed his superior footwork and ring IQ, and it appeared Ali was on the defensive. Ali then exploded with a series of fast and violent combinations in the last 30 seconds of the round, which electrified the crowd. And referee Barney Felix, could not hear the end of the round. It extended the round by 8 seconds until he did. In the third round, after a strong comeback in the second by Liston, it's 1-1. On the cards, 1-1 on the cards. Ali cut Liston with a combination. It was the first time Liston had been cut in the third. He was rocked and on the ropes. Liston angrily attacked, seemingly tired Ali, who spent all his energy in that third round trying to stop the fight. And he come back with brutal body shots. Liston was breathing hard between the rounds as the corner worked on the cut. And in the fourth, dominant Liston mauled at Clay, keeping his distance, coasting the whole round was Ali. And going into the corner in the fourth, Ali complained of burning in his eyes. Dundee, his trainer, said to him, "Calm down. We cannot call the fight off," as he was desperately trying to help Ali's vision. And in the confusion, referee Felix was about to disqualify Ali when Dundee said to Ali, "Run." Ali later said the fifth round's about frantically moving around, avoiding Sonny, and survive. By the sixth, his vision returned. It was theorized Liston's cut man may have caused the irritation. It was called Moncel's. It was a rub they can use on the eye, completely legal. But as the two boxers had engaged, it rubbed into Ali's eye, causing irritation. And they all thought that it was Liston's corner had put something in Ali's eye. Clearly not right. So Ali was clearly enraged once he got his vision back, and he landed numerous combinations. Liston failed to answer for the seventh round. He couldn't get up. And Ali was declared the winner by TKO. It was the first time since 1919, and Jess Willard, a champion, quit on his stool. Liston claimed a shoulder injury in which Miami Beach Boxing Commission chief physician confirmed. However, one of Liston's cornermen later claimed in a book Liston could have carried on. Liston trained hard for the rematch, scheduled for the November the 13th, 1964 in Boston, but allegations of drinking drugs surfaced. The stories in training, in which some say contributed to the poor performances against Ali, which were unproven. 3 days before the fight, however, Ali was forced to pull out the fight for emergency surgery on a strangulated hernia, and the fight was delayed by 6 months. The end of the fight, too, remains one of the most controversial in boxing history. Midway through round one, Ali hit Liston with a fast right, knocking Liston down. Liston could not recover, despite trying to get up, only to fall down again. Not many saw the punch in attendance, and confusion and chaos ensued. The crowd were going mad. Referee Jersey Joe Walcott had a job controlling proceedings as Ali stood over Liston yelling, "Get up and fight, sucker. No one will believe this." Walcott never picked the count back up as he couldn't hear the timekeeper. And the timekeeper was declaring the fight over, waving his arms. Walcott rushed back to the two fighters who had resumed boxing and said, "Stop." It was mayhem. As Walcott stopped the fight, awarding Ali the fight. Misinterpretation of rules by referee, the timekeepers, with Ali's non-compliance to go to a neutral corner, a count that never took place, interference of ringside reporters, all contributed to the farce. The fight ranked as one of the shortest heavyweight bouts in history. Many had not even settled into their seats when the fight was stopped. Officially 2 minutes into the first round, the fans booed and shouted "fix," and the press were formulating headlines of the Phantom Punch. Ali called it the anchor punch, which was taught to him by a student of the one and only Jack Johnson. Hall of Fame announcer Don Murphy said it best. Here was a guy who, whilst in custody, was beaten with clubs that broke over his head and didn't go down. But others claimed he wasn't the same boxer after a period of alcohol and substance abuse and depression. Many others in boxing believed the fight to be fake, not the punch, but the knockout. Liston later claimed Ali was crazy, seeing he took a dive. Sonny would take a year off between 1966 and 1967. And then in 1968, Liston fought 4 times in Sweden, all by knockout and promoted by former world heavyweight champion Ingemar Johansson. Liston returned to the US and won 7 fights, all by knockout. And in the end of 1968, he increased his string to 11. And after a 7th round knockout of 5th ranked Henry Clark, Liston seemed to be on the verge of a comeback to the big time. Talked of a fight with Big Joe Frazier, claiming it would be like shooting fish in a barrel. Liston had won 14 bouts by knockout when he faced third ranked Leotis Martin, who had been beaten by Henry Clark. And after decking Martin in the 4th round, he was knocked out cold by Martin in the 9th. First time he'd ever been knocked out. On June the 29th, 1970, in Jersey City, New Jersey, Sonny Liston fought his final professional boxing bout against Chuck Wepner. In a tough one-sided affair, the fight was stopped in the 9th round. Wepner was a mess. Cuts over both eyes, 72 stitches, broken cheekbone and broken nose. Wepner, who fought them all at the time, declared Liston the hardest puncher he'd ever faced. But said Sonny was not quick of hand or foot. He wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing puncher, but his power in both his fists, even at a slow speed, was devastating. His jab, his strongest lead arm, was formidable, said George Foreman. And Muhammad Ali, who only Ezra Charles and a young Sonny Liston declared could have caused him trouble. In 1975, said Ali, Liston was found by his wife Geraldine at their Las Vegas home and returning home from a trip. Sonny had passed away. A tragic accident was concluded by the Las Vegas Police Department, fueled by a heroin overdose. Liston was buried in Las Vegas Paradise Memorial Gardens with a grave marker plate that bears the word "A Man" as a dedication. Many theories circulated about his demise, from murder from a loan shark to mafia hitmen for throwing the fight against Ali and for losing them huge amounts of money, and to being murdered for being an informant. Nevertheless, Charles Sonny Liston was a fearsome boxer who made everyone fear his stare and his presence. His aura was that of a man who wanted to hurt you in the ring. Before the bell was tolled, unloved by the public, hated by the establishment, shunned by his own, he had his family, the respect of future generations for his work. He was brutal, he was scary, but he was ultimately just a man trying to make his name. And his name was Sonny Liston. I hope you've enjoyed the life and career of Sonny Liston with me, Mr. Neutral, and Red Corner Boxing. Join us next time. This channel is sponsored by EasyStorage.com. Go to them for all your local and nationwide needs. Thank you.